Captain Nabi gripped the arms of her command chair as the cosmic dawn shuddered violently. Red warning lights bathed the bridge in an eerie glow while alarms screamed through the corridors. The massive research vessel that had been her home for 3 years was now dying around her. "Report!" she called out, her voice cutting through the chaos. Communications Officer Tay looked up from his console, his face pale. "Engine core is completely offline, Captain. We've lost all main power systems. Emergency life support is running on backup batteries." Nabi's heart sank. They were in the void sector, the most feared region of space known to every civilized species. This wasn't just any breakdown. This was a death sentence. Engineer Wook crawled out from beneath a damaged control panel, his uniform torn and stained with coolant fluid. The quantum drive exploded from the inside. "I've never seen anything like it. It's as if the core just gave up." He wiped sweat from his forehead. Without main engines, we're completely stranded. The Cosmic Dawn had been conducting routine stellar research when everything went wrong. One moment they were collecting data on an unusual star formation. Next moment their entire ship was falling apart. Now they drifted helplessly through the empty darkness of space. "How long do we have?" Nabi asked, though she dreaded the answer. Medical Officer He checked her scanner. "With 12 crew members and current oxygen reserves, maybe 6 rotations before we start suffocating. That's if nothing else breaks down. 6 rotations. Less than a week in human time measurements." Nabi had heard stories of ships lost in the void sector. Nobody ever found them. Nobody even looked. "Send out distress signals on all frequencies," she ordered. "Emergency channels, trade routes, diplomatic bands, everything we have." Tay's fingers flew across his controls. "Transmitting now, Captain. Broadcasting our position, crew count, and situation on all standard channels." Hours passed in tense silence. The crew worked frantically to repair what they could, but without main power, their options were extremely limited. The Cosmic Dawn continued its slow drift through the black emptiness of space. "Any responses to our distress calls?" Nabi asked for the 20th time. Tay shook his head sadly. "Nothing, Captain. Several cargo ships passed through nearby sectors, but none responded. I detected at least 4 vessels that definitely received our signal." This was exactly what Nabi had feared. The void sector had earned its terrible reputation for good reason. Galactic law actually discouraged rescue operations in this region. Ships that entered to help others often disappeared themselves. The official policy was clear. Avoid the void sector at all costs. "Keep broadcasting," Nabi said firmly. "Someone has to answer eventually." But as another rotation passed and their oxygen supply dropped lower, hope began to fade. The crew moved more, slowly now, trying to conserve their remaining air. Some had already started writing final messages to their families back home. The Cosmic Dawn was truly alone in the vast darkness of space, and death was approaching with each breath they took. Communications Officer Tay slumped over his console, exhaustion weighing heavily on his shoulders. They were now into their 4th rotation without rescue, and the air was getting thinner. His fellow crew members moved like ghosts through the corridors, conserving every breath. He had been cycling through communication frequencies for hours, sending the same desperate message over and over. Modern ships used advanced quantum channels for instant communication across vast distances, but in his desperation, Tay had started checking older frequency bands that nobody used anymore. Suddenly, his equipment crackled with static. Tay jerked upright, his heart racing. Was that a response? "Unknown vessel, can you repeat your message?" The voice was strange, speaking broken galactic standard with an accent Tay had never heard before. The signal was weak and filled with interference, coming from an incredibly old frequency band that most ships didn't even monitor anymore. Tay's hands trembled as he adjusted his equipment. "This is Velthan Research Vessel Cosmic Dawn. We are stranded in the void sector with engine failure. 12 crew members aboard. Oxygen running low. Please respond if you can assist." Long minutes passed. Tay began to wonder if he had imagined the whole thing. Maybe the lack of oxygen was making him hear voices that weren't really there. Then the static cleared slightly, and the mysterious voice returned. "This is Terran Merchant Vessel Wandering Star. We received your distress call. What is your exact position? Tay nearly fell off his chair. Terran, he whispered to himself. He had never heard of any species called Terrans in all his years of communications training. Captain Nabi to the bridge, Tay called out over the ship's intercom. We have a response to our distress signal. Captain Nabi rushed onto the bridge, followed by several other crew members. Their faces showed a mixture of hope and disbelief. After days of silence, any response seemed like a miracle. Who is it? Nabi asked breathlessly. They call themselves Terrans, Captain. Never heard of them before. They're using an old frequency that most ships abandoned decades ago. Engineer Wook frowned. Terrans? That's not in any database, I know. Are you sure you heard correctly? Medical Officer He shook her head. Tay's been without proper sleep for 3 rotations. He might be hallucinating from oxygen deprivation. We all might be. But Captain Nabi held up her hand for silence. Let me hear this for myself. Tay opened the channel. Unknown Terran vessel. This is Captain Nabi of the Cosmic Dawn. Can you confirm that you received our distress signal? The response came through clearly this time. Confirmed, Captain Nabi. This is Captain Jin of the Wandering Star. We are approximately 4 hours away from your position, preparing to assist with your emergency. The bridge fell completely silent. 4 hours, that was impossibly fast. No known ship could travel that distance through the void sector in such a short time. This has to be some kind of trick, Wook muttered. Or maybe we're all losing our minds. But Tay was already running scans of the surrounding space. Captain, I'm detecting a ship approaching our position. It's moving faster than anything I've ever seen. Captain Nabi stared at the display screen, watching an unknown vessel racing toward them through the deadly darkness of the void sector. These mysterious Terrans were either their salvation or something completely beyond their understanding. The Wandering Star appeared on their sensors exactly 4 hours later, just as promised. Captain Nabi stared at the readings in complete disbelief. The ship had covered a distance that should have taken 3 days in less than half a rotation. This violated everything they knew about faster-than-light travel. How is that even possible? Engineer Wook whispered, studying the approach vector. Their ship is moving through space-time in ways that our computers say shouldn't exist. The mysterious vessel was unlike anything in Velthan records. It looked sturdy, but simple, with clean lines and practical design. No fancy decorations, or intimidating weapons visible on the hull. Just a working ship built for long journeys. Incoming transmission, Tay announced, his voice filled with nervous excitement. Put it on the main screen, Captain Nabi ordered, straightening her uniform. She had no idea what to expect from these strange beings called Terrans. The view screen flickered to life, and gasps echoed across the bridge. The creature looking back at them was completely alien, yet somehow familiar. It stood upright on 2 legs like a Velthan, but its skin was darker, and its features were different. Short hair covered its head, and small eyes looked directly at them with what seemed like genuine concern. Greetings, Captain Nabi, the being said in surprisingly clear galactic standard. I am Captain Jin of the Earth vessel Wandering Star. We are here to help with your emergency situation. Medical Officer He leaned forward, fascinated. Earth? Never heard of that planet. Captain, this species isn't in any of our databases. Captain Jin seemed to hear her comment and smiled slightly. That's not surprising. We humans tend to keep to ourselves most of the time. But we heard your distress call, and no one should be left to die in space. Engineer Wook looked suspicious. What do you want in return for this rescue? Territory rights? Technology exchange? Access to our research data? The human captain's expression changed to one of confusion. Want in return? You're in trouble and need help. That's all the reason we need. The Velthan crew exchanged puzzled glances. In their experience, no species ever offered assistance without demanding something valuable in exchange. The Galactics. Politics was built on deals, trades, and negotiations. Nothing was ever free. Captain Jin, Nabi said carefully, we appreciate your offer, but we must discuss terms. What compensation do you require for this rescue operation? Jin's face showed genuine surprise. Compensation? Captain, you're running out of air. People are going to die if we don't act quickly. We can worry about paperwork later. Before anyone could respond, The human ship had already moved into position alongside the Cosmic Dawn. Through the viewport, they could see figures in spacesuits floating between the two vessels, carrying equipment and supplies. "We're sending over emergency oxygen tanks and our engineer to assess your engine damage," Jin continued. "Our medical officer will also come aboard to check your crew for any injuries or health problems." Tay monitored the approaching shuttlecraft. "Captain, they're not asking for permission to board, they're not requesting security clearance, they're just coming to help." This behavior was completely unprecedented in Velthan experience. When ships encountered each other in space, there were always lengthy negotiations about boarding rights, security protocols, and mutual guarantees. These humans were acting like the emergency was their own problem to solve. "Stand by to receive the human rescue team," Captain Nabi announced to her crew, though she still couldn't quite believe what was happening. For the first time in days, hope began to spread through the corridors of the Cosmic Dawn. Chief Engineer Juan floated through the Cosmic Dawn's engine room, examining the massive quantum drive that had completely shut down. He carried a simple toolbox that looked ancient, compared to the sophisticated Velthan equipment surrounding him. Engineer Wook followed closely behind, watching every move with growing confusion. "Your quantum matrix has completely collapsed," Juan said, running his hands along the sleek alien machinery. "The containment field generators are burned out, and your power distribution network is fried." Wook nodded sadly. "Exactly. That's why we sent the distress signal. Without replacement parts from our homeworld, this ship will never fly again. The quantum drive requires perfect precision manufacturing that can only be done in specialized facilities." Juan scratched his head and smiled. "Well, let's see what we can do about that." To Wook's complete shock, the human engineer began pulling what looked like primitive tools from his toolbox. Instead of sophisticated laser welders and molecular assemblers, Juan had simple metal instruments that seemed centuries out of date. "What are you doing?" Wook asked nervously. "Those tools will damage our precision systems. The quantum drive components require nanometer-level accuracy." But Juan was already working, completely ignoring the computer warnings that flashed red across every display screen. He bypassed the main containment system entirely, connecting power cables in ways that made Wook's training scream in protest. "This shouldn't work," Wook muttered, watching Juan wire together components that were never meant to be connected. "The computer models say this configuration will cause a cascade failure," Juan chuckled as he twisted two cables together with his bare hands. "Computers are useful, but sometimes you have to trust your gut feelings. This should create a stable power flow even if it's not pretty." The human engineer worked with an intuitive understanding that defied everything Wook had learned. Where Velthan technology required perfect calculations and precise measurements, Juan seemed to know instinctively what would work. He made adjustments based on sounds, vibrations, and even smells that Wook couldn't detect. "Your people rely too much on perfection," Juan explained, while jury-rigging a completely improvised power coupling. "Sometimes the rough solution works, better than the elegant one." Within 3 hours, something impossible happened. The Cosmic Dawn's engines hummed back to life. The quantum drive that had been completely dead was now running smoothly, powered by a chaotic maze of human modifications that shouldn't have worked according to any known physics. "How is this possible?" Wook stared at his instruments in disbelief. "The efficiency readings are actually better than before the breakdown, but this design violates at least 6 fundamental engineering principles." Juan packed up his simple tools with satisfaction. "Your advanced systems are beautiful, but they're also fragile. When something breaks, you need replacement parts manufactured to exact specifications. Our approach is different. We make things work with whatever we have available." Throughout the ship, other human crew members were performing similar miracles. They fixed the navigation system using components from the kitchen. They repaired the communication array with spare parts from their own ship that somehow fit perfectly into Velthan equipment. Medical Officer He watched a human technician restore their environmental controls using nothing but basic electronics and what appeared to be determination. "They're not following any logical procedures," she whispered to Captain Nabi. "They just know what to do." The humans worked with a practical creativity that amazed their alien hosts. Where Velthan engineers would have declared the ship beyond repair, these strange beings had brought it back to life, using methods that seemed like magic. While the repairs continued, Captain Jin invited the Velthan crew to join the humans for a meal in the Cosmic Dawn's restored dining area. The aliens weren't sure what to expect from these strange beings, who had appeared from nowhere to save them. Dr. Yuna, the human medical officer, had prepared food that somehow worked for both species. She explained with a warm smile, "We analyzed your dietary needs from your medical records and adjusted our recipes. Food brings people together no matter where they come from." Engineer Wook stared at the simple but delicious meal in front of him. "You took time to study our biology, just to cook for us? Why would you do that?" The humans looked genuinely puzzled by the question. "Because you're hungry," said Juan, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. "And sharing food is how we show friendship." As they ate, the humans began telling stories about their travels through space. Captain Nabi listened in amazement as Jin described rescue operations they had performed across the galaxy. Each story was told casually, as if helping strangers was perfectly normal. "Last month we pulled a Xylorian cargo ship out of a black hole's gravity well," Jin mentioned, while passing around what looked like homemade bread. "Took us 6 days to figure out the physics, but we got all 40 crew members out safely." Medical. Officer He nearly choked on her food. "You risked your ship and crew to save complete strangers? For 6 days? What did they pay you?" The humans exchanged glances and started laughing. Not mocking laughter, but genuine amusement at the question. "Pay us?" Dr. Yuna wiped tears from her eyes. They were trapped and scared. Their families were probably worried sick. We couldn't just leave them there. Communications Officer Tay leaned forward, fascinated. "But what if you had failed? What if your ship had been destroyed trying to help them?" Captain Jin's expression grew serious. "Then we would have failed trying to do the right thing. That's a risk we're willing to take." Throughout the meal, Dr. Yuna moved between the crew members, checking on their health after the oxygen shortage. She didn't just scan them with medical instruments. She actually listened to their concerns, asked about their families, and made sure they felt comfortable. When CT's engineer Wook mentioned feeling dizzy, Dr. Yuna didn't just give him medication. She sat with him, explained exactly what had happened to his body during the emergency, and taught him breathing exercises to help with his anxiety. "Your medical training is very advanced," he observed, "but you treat patients like friends." "Doctor," Yuna smiled while checking Wook's pulse the old-fashioned way, with her fingers on his wrist. "Medical scanners can tell me about your body, but they can't tell me about your fears or your hopes. Healing isn't just about fixing what's broken, it's about caring for the whole person." The Velthans began to understand that these humans operated on principles they had never encountered before. In galactic civilization, everything was based on contracts, negotiations, and mutual benefit, but humans seemed to help others simply because they could. "Have you always been this way?" Captain Nabi asked. "Do all humans risk themselves for strangers?" The human crew members looked at each other thoughtfully. "It's just who we are," Juan said simply. "When someone needs help, you help them. That's what makes us human." For the first time in their lives, the Velthans were seeing what unconditional kindness looked like. After the meal, Captain Nabi found herself alone with Captain Jin on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. The Cosmic Dawn was now running smoothly thanks to the human repairs, but she had so many questions about these mysterious people who had saved them. "Captain Jin," she began carefully, "I've been thinking about something. How did you find us so quickly? And why have we never heard of humans before?" Jin leaned against the viewport, his expression thoughtful. "That's a long story, Captain Nabi. Are you sure you want to hear it? Please, after what you've done for us, I think we deserve to understand who you really are." Jin nodded slowly. "Humans have been traveling through this galaxy for almost 60 years now. We've been watching, learning, and helping where we can, but we've stayed hidden from the major galactic governments." Nabi's eyes widened. 60 years. But that's impossible. Our deep space sensors would have detected your ships. Our intelligence networks would have reported unknown vessels. Not if we didn't want to be found, Jin smiled. Humans are very good at staying invisible when we need to. We learned early that galactic politics can be complicated. Through the viewport, they could see the human ship Wandering Star maintaining position alongside them. It looked so ordinary, yet Nabi now realized it represented something extraordinary. We discovered that most advanced civilizations spend more time arguing about territory and trade agreements than actually helping people, Jin continued. The Galactic Council has committees to form committees that discuss whether they should help someone. By the time they make a decision, whoever needed help is usually dead. Nabi felt uncomfortable because she knew this was true. Her own government had strict policies about rescue operations, especially in dangerous regions like the Void Sector. So humans decided to work outside the system, she asked. Exactly. Ships like the Wandering Star patrol the areas that everyone else avoids. The dead zones, the unexplored regions, the places where official rescue services won't go. We monitor old emergency frequencies that most species stopped using decades ago. Jin pointed toward the dark space around them. Take the Void Sector, for example. Every civilized species has declared it too dangerous for rescue operations. Ships that get stranded here are officially written off as acceptable losses. But to us that just means people need help, and no one else is coming. You actually seek out the most dangerous places in the galaxy? Nabi couldn't hide her amazement. Someone has to, Jin said simply. There are dozens of human ships like ours scattered across the galaxy. We stay in contact through those old frequency bands, sharing information about where help is needed most. Doctor. Yuna joined them on the observation deck, carrying a cup of something that smelled wonderful. We're not trying to build an empire or claim territory, she added to the conversation. We just want to make sure that when someone calls for help, someone answers. Captain Nabi stared out at the stars with new understanding. While her people and every other known species were busy with politics and bureaucracy, humans had quietly created an invisible network of guardian angels. How many people have you saved? She asked quietly. Jin and Dr. Yuna exchanged glances. We don't keep count, Jin said. That's not why we do it. For the first time, Captain Nabi began to understand that humanity operated on completely different principles than any species she had ever known. 2 days after the rescue, long-range sensors detected a massive Velthan military fleet approaching their position. Captain Nabi's heart sank as she recognized the flagship, Admiral Day's command vessel, bristling with weapons and accompanied by 6 heavy cruisers. They got our emergency beacon transmission, Communications Officer Tay reported nervously. Standard protocol when a research vessel goes missing. Captain Jin studied the approaching ships with calm interest. That's quite a welcoming committee. Are they here to thank us for the rescue? The innocence in his question made Captain Nabi feel sick. She knew exactly why Admiral Day was here, and it wasn't to express gratitude. Captain Jin, she said urgently, you need to leave immediately. Admiral Day commands the 7th investigation. Fleet. His job is to deal with more unauthorized contact situations. Before Jin could respond, Admiral Day's voice boomed across all communication channels. Attention unknown vessels. You are ordered to power down your engines and prepare for immediate boarding. Any attempt to flee will be considered an act of aggression. The human captain's eyebrows rose slightly. Well, that doesn't sound very friendly. Dr. Yuna appeared on the bridge, looking concerned. Captain, our ship's computers are being scanned by some very invasive probes. They're trying to download our entire database. Unauthorized species designation Terror. Admiral Day continued his broadcast. You have violated galactic contact protocols and contaminated a Velthan research vessel. Surrender your technology and submit to interrogation immediately. Captain Nabi watched Jin's expression carefully. Any other species would either attack or flee in panic when faced with such overwhelming military force. But the human captain simply looked disappointed. Admiral Day, Jin responded politely. We were responding to a distress call from people who needed help. I'm not sure what protocols we violated by saving lives. The response from the Velthan fleet was swift and threatening. Weapon systems activated, and the warships moved into attack formation around the much smaller human vessel. You will comply immediately or face the consequences, Admiral Day snarled. "Your primitive ship is surrounded and outgunned." Captain Nabi held her breath, expecting the humans to surrender. The Wandering Star was tiny compared to the Velthan fleet, and clearly outmatched in terms of firepower. Instead, something remarkable happened. "All crew, prepare for emergency maneuvers," Jin announced calmly. "Looks like we need to leave the neighborhood." What followed defied everything Captain Nabi knew about space combat. The Wandering Star didn't flee in a straight line like a normal ship would. Instead, it began moving in impossible patterns that made the Velthan targeting systems completely useless. "How are they doing that?" Engineer Wook stared at his instruments in disbelief. "They're changing direction without using their main engines. That ship is moving like it weighs nothing." The human vessel danced between the Velthan warships, like a leaf in the wind, always staying just out of weapons range. Every time the fleet thought they had it cornered, the Wandering Star would slip away using maneuvers that violated basic physics. "Their tactical thinking is completely unpredictable." Admiral Day's frustrated voice came over the radio. "They're not following any known combat patterns." Captain Nabi watched in amazement as her rescuers were treated like criminals, hunted by her own people for the crime of saving lives. The beautiful irony wasn't lost on her. The very authorities who had written off the Cosmic Dawn as acceptable losses were now trying to capture the people who had refused to abandon them. "Captain." Nabi stood on her bridge, watching the Wandering Star continue its impossible dance around the Velthan fleet. Her own people were trying to capture the beings who had saved her life, and she couldn't stand it anymore. "Open a channel to Admiral Day," she ordered firmly. Communications Officer Tay looked nervous. "Captain, are you sure? Interfering with a military operation could end your career." "Then so be it," Nabi replied. She had made her decision. Admiral Day's stern face appeared on the main screen. "Captain Nabi, you will remain silent while we deal with this contamination situation." "With respect, Admiral, there is no contamination," Nabi said boldly. "These humans saved our lives when no one else would. They asked for nothing in return and treated us with more kindness than we've ever experienced." The Admiral's expression darkened. "You have been exposed to an unknown species for too long. Your judgment is compromised. These creatures violated first contact protocols and illegally entered Velthan space." Engineer Wook stepped forward, surprising everyone. "Admiral, they fixed our quantum drive using techniques that our best engineers said were impossible. Instead of hoarding their knowledge, they taught us everything they knew. The humans shared their medical expertise freely," added Medical Officer He. "Dr. Yuna could have kept their advanced healing methods secret, but she showed me techniques that will help me save lives for years to come." Admiral Day looked furious. "You are all suffering from psychological manipulation. These aliens have clearly used some form of mind control." That's when Chief Engineer Huan's voice came over the communication channel from the Wandering Star. "Admiral Day, if you're concerned about our technology, I'd be happy to share the specifications for our engine modifications. No secrets, no payment required." The entire Velthan fleet went silent. In galactic civilization, technology was the most closely guarded treasure any species possessed. Wars had been fought over far less advanced innovations. "You're offering to give away your technology?" Admiral Day asked in disbelief. "Of course," Huan replied cheerfully. "Knowledge belongs to everyone. The more people who understand how things work, the better we can all help each other." Captain Nabi felt tears in her eyes. These humans were proving everything her society believed about competition and secrecy was wrong. "I'm transmitting the technical data now," Huan continued. "Your engineers should find it interesting. We've also included our medical database and some improvements for your life support systems." Dr. Yuna's voice joined the conversation. "We're also sending over vaccination formulas that should protect your people from several diseases we've encountered in our travels. No charge, obviously." The Velthan crew of the Cosmic Dawn watched. Their military leaders struggled to understand what was happening. These humans were freely giving away knowledge that would be worth fortunes in the galactic marketplace. "This makes no sense," Admiral Day muttered. "Why would any species give away such valuable information?" Captain Jin's voice came through clearly. "Because helping others makes us all stronger. When everyone has access to better technology and medicine, everyone benefits. Competition might make individuals rich, but cooperation makes entire civilizations thrive. Captain Nabi looked around at her crew and saw the same realization in their eyes. They had encountered something unprecedented, a species that truly believed in putting others before themselves. "Admiral," Nabi said quietly, "these humans represent everything we claim to value, but never actually practice. Maybe it's time we learn from them instead of trying to capture them." Admiral Day faced an impossible situation. His entire fleet had witnessed humans freely sharing advanced technology worth billions of credits. His own officers were questioning orders to capture beings who had just given them medical breakthroughs that could save countless lives. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported quietly, "the human ship is still evading our weapons, but they haven't fired a single shot in return. They're not even targeting our systems defensively." This peaceful response confused everyone. Any other species would have either surrendered or fought back aggressively when surrounded by military vessels. They could have damaged our ships easily. "With their advanced technology," another officer added. "But they're choosing not to hurt us." Captain Nabi seized the moment. "Admiral, what if we're looking at this all wrong? Instead of treating the humans as a threat, what if we recognize them as potential allies?" The Admiral's stern expression wavered. Years of military training told him to follow protocol, but the evidence before his eyes suggested something extraordinary was happening. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, news of the encounter was spreading rapidly. The freely shared human technology had already been analyzed by Velthan scientists, who confirmed it was decades ahead of anything they possessed. More importantly, it worked exactly as promised, with no hidden dangers or secret controls. Dr. Yuna's medical advances were being tested in hospitals throughout Velthan space, saving lives within hours of transmission. The engineering specifications that Chief Huan had shared were revolutionizing ship design principles that had remained unchanged for centuries. 3 months later, Captain Nabi stood before the Galactic Council on the central world of Axiom Prime. The massive chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of species, all eager to hear about these mysterious humans. "Honored delegates," Nabi began, "we face a choice that will define our civilization's future. For generations we have built our society on competition, secrecy, and self-interest. The humans offer us a different path." She gestured to a holographic display showing rescue statistics. In the past year alone, human ships have saved over 3,000 lives in sectors that we officially consider too dangerous for rescue operations. They ask for nothing in return except the chance to help more people. A Zilorian delegate raised a tentacle. "Captain Nabi, how can we trust a species that operates outside our established laws and treaties?" "Because they've earned that trust through actions, not words," Nabi replied firmly. "When my ship was dying in the Void Sector, every civilized vessel ignored our distress calls. Only the humans answered." The debate continued for hours, with some delegates arguing for human integration, while others demanded strict controls on their activities. But the tide was turning as more rescue stories emerged from across the galaxy. 6 months later, the Cosmic Dawn flew alongside the wandering star through the dangerous nebula sector, monitoring emergency frequencies. Captain Nabi had resigned from her research position to become the first alien member of the human rescue network. "Emergency signal detected," Communications Officer Tay reported. "Merchant vessel stranded near the gravitational anomaly." "Both ships. Prepare for rescue operations," Captain Nabi announced. She had learned that the most important question wasn't what species needed help or what they could pay. The only question that mattered was simple: could they help? The two ships moved together toward the distress signal, representing something new in galactic history. Proof that compassion could bridge any gap between species, and that sometimes the greatest strength comes from simply caring enough to answer when someone calls for help. The galaxy was slowly learning the human way.